Oh, here we go. I'm gonna add something to the stream.
Hello, hello.
Hey, how's
Another day in paradise, you know it.
Yeah, where are you coming from?
I'm coming from Salt Lake City.
Oh, nice. I'm in LA.
That's nice.
Are you guys a full distributed team all the time? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we do come together time to time just to do some fundraising and stuff like that. But in general, we are fully distributed.
Nice.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have a way to know how many people are actually watching. So I've just been babbling to myself for a little while here.
No, that's quite all right.
I think Krill's gonna come on like right at 10:20.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Or 10:30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No. I just, when you said about the remote team, I recently had a conversation with the head of the GitLab, GitLab remote team, and how they were saying how they're trying to, how they were always a fully remote team and how they're trying to manage that. And it was really interesting to hear some of the best practices that they had.
Oh yeah, I mean the switch obviously being kind of mandated now for teams to go remote is, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, just in like, my preference has always been have people together but private offices, you know, like, because I think people need that sort of like kind of sense of space and being able to close the door. So yeah.
Yeah. I remember that in the beginning of my career for 7 years, I worked at Goldman Sachs, and then they pretty much they have exactly the same setup where they have pretty much the trading rows, right, where people sit right next to each other, and then they have the private offices that you would grab and talk just so you can focus on things because it's so loud. And then I'm reading the Michael Lew's book on the Flash Boys.
Oh yeah,
and he's saying that Goldman Sachs culture is so secretive. They're always grabbing the rooms and like discussing the plans how to overrun the world. I'm like, no.
They're just trying to get their work done.
Exactly. So that was fun. Yeah, that was fun. So sorry I cut you off.
Oh no, I was wondering, what's your role on the team?
Yeah, so I'm well, you know, it's a startup, so you do a lot of.
You have every role, but yeah.
Exactly, right. But I mainly focus on the strategy, on how we position, how we structure it, how we communicate that, as well as some of the marketing, some of the messages that we deliver, and obviously, given my background in the financial services, I just provide kind of like a sound financial model to what we are about to offer.
Yep, nice. That makes sense. Yeah. Having gone through the ups and downs of startup time. Yeah. I know that titles can be fluid, so.
Yeah, that's definitely that. But again, it's super interesting, and it's definitely, I was just thinking the other day how it's, especially right now, we really realize that the only asset the company really has, more or less, is its people. Because no matter how automated your production is, no matter how many machinery you have, unless you have physical people present, there's like nothing happening. You cannot have it fully remote, right? You can have it to the extent, but then nevertheless, still the best asset and the best value that company has and that brings to the company are the people. So and that's why I think that well, you know, I'm telling you, the first publicly traded person on the value that the individual brings, but it's definitely something that I think we all can relate more in the last 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I'm gonna switch over some tabs. I just lined up some kind of going live with tweets and posts on different things real quick. So I'm just going to execute those just to see if people care to show up. But yeah, it was super exciting. I woke up this morning and checked my phone, and I saw like all the emails come in, and I was just like, oh, and then I looked and I was like, oh, it's sold out. I mean, obviously, like I priced it very low, but like it sold out so fast. It was really, yeah. And then just to watch it sort of like be climbing up and up and up in price is pretty interesting. And I wonder how much of that like gold price is kind of, how much of it is based on kind of looking at the other people on the platform? Are people thinking like, because it seems like everyone's in that kind of 100 to 250 range, which is interesting.
Yeah, but like well, on the very first side, you're probably the only person who can tell us that it's your second time doing that, you know.
Well, but I will say the part of the excitement is, you know, when I started, there was definitely not enough demand for, like, you know, for an IPO. Like, I just kind of said I have this many shares, and I just started selling and trading amongst all the other shareholders, and we kind of decided that I would do that because I could kind of undercut everybody's pricing. But so now I just kind of do these annual releases or stock grants to people that are kind of helping out on the site. But yeah, so it was really exciting to both have the IPO and then, you know, kind of have this pop happen at the same time. So,
but I know it's I think in terms of what you said on how people price and how they address and all of this, it really kind of questions the experimentation, right? So do you actually go from the point where, okay, this is like my time, right? This is my professional time, sort of like a lawyer perspective, right? Or do you want to go into a little bit more of the crowdsourcing approach, where you have a little bit of the crowd validation and people trying to price your time based on the based on the demand, right?
And that's something, you know, as someone who has traditionally through my life, I've had a job, you know, that pays kind of whatever, and that's determined kind of by the salary. And I've done some jobs where it's like pricing by hour, and it's always so hard because it's like, it's kind of this thing of like, how much can I get versus how humble, you know, versus like how much can I actually charge? What's the going rate? And so that price discovery is the thing I was really excited about. Is what will other people determine, and where will the market kind of settle? And obviously it's, you know, it's low volume, so it's going to take a little while. But I'm kind of curious where it ends up. And I like the idea of saying, if and when I'm hired again on a time base, I have this reference now, and I can say, no, my time's worth 75, 98, whatever it is an hour.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, pricing is definitely something that not only individuals but the companies struggle as well. And I had a partner back at Goldman who'd always say, "Why charge less if you can charge more?" So that's that's kind of the idea. But but I think it's also the biggest question of the price. It's again, going back to my financial days, I would always tell my analysts that there is not a thing like a cheap or expensive, right? It's either undervalued, overvalued, or fairly valued asset. Right. So it's really not necessarily about the price. It's about the value that you will deliver, or at least you build your marketing spiel to be. Oh,
yeah. Hey,
how's it going,
guys? Yeah, doing good. How about you guys?
I mean, I'm doing great. I'm up.
Yeah. By the way, I just checked actually the dashboard, and you're already in 98 per hour. So it's going crazy. I think the most exciting thing that you really was you were sold out like before the official start of your campaign, before your official IPO start.
Was that the first time the pre-placement sort of cleared everything out?
Yeah. So how fast it was. This is the first time.
Yeah.
So it was really like, you know, like a rocket.
Look, 653%. If we were in investment banking and we priced you at that and we went live and then on the first day it jumped 653, you'll probably sue us from pricing it too low.
I was wondering about that from your perspective, like because I know there's like how do you actually determine that, you know, in the and with pre-placements and those kind of things in the, you know, in the quote unquote real world of a publicly traded company, and how much are you trying to emulate that kind of in this process?
Well, you know, it's again, I think that in general, the overall IPO process, and just kind of going from my experience from the time, it's kind of reminds me, you know, a little bit of the real estate market. That you just trying to find this price that on the one side is kind of attractive enough, but then it will not scare away people, but plus you usually based on some of the connections that you already have, right? So you can go and kind of feel the market and see what they're willing to pay and what they're willing to process, right? But with the company, it's a little bit different. With the company, you have much more stakeholders. You have the different venture capital firms, PE firms that kind of invested. So it's not just pretty much like founder and the company who's going public. So, and it's definitely, there is a discovery process, and there's definitely value of experimentation and value of discovering what are the correct pricing model. But then at the same time, I think it's really on how you, as a person who's going public, that you have control and you have philosophy pretty much behind it. And that's what I think is really helping the market to price it and see where you at and how much the value of their time, right? So I think the general approach, and that's how I would think about it, it's we are the platform, we are pretty much the marketplace, and in order for the marketplace to be successful, it has to be beneficial to both sides of the equation, right? That yes, we might price you too low, that might be the case, right? Looking back, but then at the same time, it doesn't really matter, because if it's fine with you, and if it is fine with your backers, if you're fine with the people who invest into you and buying your time, that means that this platform works, and that's really what it is. So maybe the next time, on the next offering, we're going to price you a little bit higher if this is what you want. And by giving this flexibility and giving that mechanism, pretty much, like giving that marketplace, we are creating those synergies on the both sides of the equation that I think is the most important part of building a platform that will benefit everyone in this equation.
So going back just to kind of explain the process as we talked through it, like my initial thought was, and it was with guidance from you guys, was how many hours do I want to actually put out there? And I know you have limits on kind of how many you're kind of like allowing people to put out. And I thought, well, 52 hours for me, which is like, it's an hour a week. So I know I can kind of maintain that at most. But I have kind of this amount of hours in reserve that again, with your guidance that was kind of set up. So I know we're early days of Human IPO, but how do you see, how will the process work at some point when I'm ready to sort of release another, let's say 52 hours, how will that process work? And how do you see it kind of affecting the price?
Yeah, so I think in general here, again, it's more we need to look at the both sides, right? So the first thing is that, and you're always trying to look into the extremes and trying to make your decisions based on those extremes, but it's not always necessarily that you're going to make your particular decision made on those extremes, right? So on the one side, we definitely need to make sure that people. And not necessarily you, right? But not somebody who's diluting the time of the shareholders, right? So let's say there's a 52 hours on the marketplace, and then they decide to release another 500 hours. That's definitely dilute their time. So there is definitely we should see a decrease in the total available hours, right? And then as soon as we reach that limit of how much time was already redeemed, then when you can go and issue more time on your platform, making sure that you kind of create the synergy to both the current holders and those who already redeem your time, and to yourself as well. Right.
And how have people been redeeming time yet, or are we still just very much in the early phases? Like for other people that were sort of have already sold their time, has there been some redemptions?
So actually, we had already a few redemptions, but most of the size from the market, I mean, most of our like investors, they hold the time for the future perspective.
Yeah,
to redeem it later, or to sell it later for the bigger price.
Yep, that was certainly my plan.
That's like the behavior that we were expecting, and that's what we see. So no surprises here.
Yeah, I've been buying just like as people have gone have launched. I started buying just like small bits of different people. My diversified portfolio of people here represented.
Yeah.
It's quite symmetric.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, and honestly, I think that there are two kind of values, I think, in the business model. That's how we think about it, right? So we obviously price it as a time, but if you really think about it, the real commodity here is an access, right? So like for example, let's say somebody wants to talk to you about your experience of going to a public person. How many steps of somebody like myself, you know, who never met you, who doesn't know who doesn't know you, who doesn't know maybe anyone who knows you,
whom to ask, right?
Yeah, how much time would I actually spend on trying to find you, or trying to find someone who will introduce you to me to yourself? And then moreover, how much negotiation will go into that? Hey Mike, I'm going to pay you, $100, $150, $200 an hour for you to speak to me, right? So that's kind of the idea. So when I look into the time, when I look into the human IPO, what I personally see the value is that access, right? So I can go immediately and I can find the person that I'm interested in, and then without further ado, without any kind of muggering and finding what is happening and finding all the mutual contacts, I can go to the platform, select you, and buy the time from the existing holders. Or at the same time, I might find some people who are interesting to me, but not necessarily they're interesting to me right now. Maybe I want to wait with my startup to get some guidance on funding, and I'm not in the funding right now, but I'll be funding in 3 months. What if I want to invest right now to buy it at the lower price and then use it when I need it?
Yeah, and I like that vision kind of speaks to obviously the platform being out of beta and many more people, but the idea that you could kind of go through and select sort of like, oh, I need this person, that person, and that person. I want to talk to them about this idea, and pulling them together, kind of using a little bit of their time to either pitch them on something, or try to sell them, or share an idea, or get feedback on something is pretty exciting. It's a little prohibitive at the pricing that you see right now, but I guess it depends on your idea as well, right? Like
it depends on your value, right?
Yeah, exactly, and what you're trying to do. It might be worth it. So it's interesting, and it's fun to watch and have. For me, having done this myself, sort of alone over here in the corner for a pretty long time, it's really fun to be able to see the other pricing and the other people's, prices kind of fluctuate and change a little bit over time. And I love the being able to see Mike in there with all those other people trading around.
Yeah. Yeah, but again, I guess really the question of the price is really goes down to what we said earlier, right? How do you value that asset, right? If you, let's say again, if you're an entrepreneur who's trying to raise, $300,000 or $3 million, or $30 million, and that this process takes on average 6 months just to go and get some guidance and get to know some of those VCs. Imagine that you can go to that platform and find someone who can share their best practices. They went through it, right? So let's say buy 5 hours of their time, that will save you 3 months. Yeah. Right. So then how do you price that? And then let's say you can find some venture capitalists out there who raise their funds through our platform to fund their fund, and therefore they have this commitment pretty much to the platform. And then instead of trying to contact them and find someone who can find them and pay them the finder fee and all this, you can just go in and directly talk to this person and say, hey, I'm pitching this. If you're interested, right? This is what it is. This is my product. So it's pretty much, it saves me, I can go from 6 months to 1 month. And then the question is, how much are you willing to pay for 5 months of your life? I would say will be willing to pay a lot of money.
Yeah, and that idea, and I know the structure right now is more set up as this kind of consulting time, but the idea that if developers and designers and things like that started listing their time and their hourly, and that you could sort of find. I mean, one of the things that I used to do with designers back when I lived in Portland is there was the design school would have an annual event, or at the end of every class, I guess twice a year. It was like a fair with all the designers. I just go collect business cards and take notes, because these, like, the younger designers coming out of school, like it was such a good arbitrage opportunity. It was like, oh, I can hire you for far less to do this amazing work, you know, and pretty soon you're going to outprice me, right? Because you're going to get a job and you're going to have a bigger portfolio with all these professional clients. But I always find these opportunities to get some really great design work done for pretty cheap. And the idea that you could lock that pricing in, you know, with something like Human IPO and say like, oh, these designers are all going and sell some time. I'm going to lock up their time and then I'm going to use it, you know, a year from
Later.
now. Yeah. And so being able to bank that early seems like a really valuable thing as well.
Yeah. Yeah, but also think about on the other side. Let's say that you are the young designer. Let's say that you pretty much in the beginning, what you might have skills, but you not necessarily have money even to market yourself, right?
Right.
So again, like if you, how much would you pay right now? How much would you value that 10, 15, 20, $30,000 they can get from your Human IPO right here at the moment that you can then invest into building a website, into marketing your website, maybe building some materials that will pretty much exponentially increase your value, right?
Do some pro bono work for a nonprofit, or, you know, build up your portfolio in these other ways because you have this kind of little bit of cash to work with.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting that, and we went through several iterations with Merrill about how we're gonna structure it, right? So first we thought about, okay, can we put some monetary value to it, right? Can we put some kind of the dividends, right? But then at the end of the day, we thought, okay, what is the most ultimate? What is the most finite commodity you have? And it's time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. It is time, right? So you cannot pretty much any like all of our life, pretty much all of our work, all of our jobs is really just trading our time for money. That's like the really what our lives are, right? There's like nothing else to it in terms of work, in terms of our profession, right? So professional is a person who's getting paid for their work, and their work is their time. And what you said is that it's much. We believe that people are much more inclined to share their time and to share their knowledge and kind of share their success rather than share their their money in some sort of the way. Plus, I mean, additionally, we also think that sharing time is actually much more stable than sharing your income.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to. I don't want to mention it that, you know, in the morning, but Donald Trump, right? He went bankrupt several times in his career, right? But then at the same time, if he still has a lot of business knowledge, right? So even in the time that he's bankrupt, his time, his knowledge is pretty much still valuable, right? Maybe not right now, but you know, but like 20 years ago, even like on the lowest of the low of the financial income, the educational, the experience income was still super high. Yeah.
Well, and you see that with the sort of celebrity auctions of time, like the you know, go have lunch with Warren Buffett or these kind of things. And obviously there's a charity aspect to that and some kind of performance pain when people are buying that. But it's interesting to think of, you know, like, I'm not sure that those events necessarily represent the true value of that person's hour, you know, because of those other aspects. But that is a person's time who's in very, very limited supply and great demand, and so there is a little bit of something to that.
Yeah. But yeah, again, it's a question about access, right? So again, like, let's say you want to have some kind of star, so you know, a music star. That you want to have an access, and you want them to create a song for you, you know, and they will take 10 hours, right? So if you can find them, you know, 5 years ago, before they make it big, before they made their wonderful YouTube clip with the money they collected from the Human IPO, right? That could be very, very valuable, and that could be there is pretty much a lot of opportunities that people can imagine for themselves and for the people that invest in, on how they can support people that they believe in, but B, how they can later use this time, or again, redeem it for some financial profit.
It feels like it gets really close, if not overlaps, with that kind of DeFi aspect, you know, Web3 kind of idea of like being able, and I think I was playing with this as well by starting with a low price, is like letting the people who are supporting you and buying in also be able to be the ones that can profit and benefit from launching on a platform. I look at it and it's like, oh, I raised, like $600 and something from selling my time. Other people, as the volume starts to increase, might make far more than that on that same amount of time. And I love that idea, because it's such a great incentive to like that get in early. It's a reward for those supporters, investors, backers, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of like another idea that sparked this whole thinking, right? Is that we do have people who have the social capital. Mm-hmm. Right, they have followers, they have, they retweet and all of this. And currently, the only way that this community, how you can monetize this community and how can you engage with this community is pretty much with the advertisement. That's really the only thing on how you can capitalize on the social capital. You can just be pretty much a media outlet for either advertisement or some idea that you care about, maybe some nonprofit that you care about. But then how do you actually take those people who support you, maybe who supported you from the very beginning? How do you get the reward to them by being your supporter, by being in the social capital network? And that's something that we saw and thought, hey, if I don't want to mention that name in the morning, but if you talk about Kylie Jenner, right? She has how many followers on the Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Yes, she can at the end of each Instagram post, she can say buy Kylie Cosmetics, or she can say, hey, this is my time. If you want to talk, if you want to engage with me, this is my human IPO, and then if you support me, if you think that I'm going to grow, or maybe next Kylie Jenner of the Generation Z, right?
Well, and that's what I love about like the direction that you guys are taking. Feels like it's not let's go after the biggest names to drum up a bunch of like kind of splashy headlines. It really feels like you're kind of going down the tail a little bit and being, who are the people that, yes, they have some community, they have some promise, and over time we will show the sort of like growth in value and the power of kind of like building these networks. And I think I'm sure it's harder for you. I'm sure you'd love a big, I'm sure if one of these celebrities probably came up, you probably wouldn't say no. But I like the idea that you're kind of starting with these like little small inclusive communities and building from there. Because I think when one of them hits or pops or becomes the next whatever it is, you're gonna have that whole story right on the platform, as opposed to saying, oh, we just went for the most famous person and launched for that. That's not as good of a narrative, I don't think.
Yeah, well, I think as with every technology, and I think we all saw the graph, right? How you have the early adopters, and then you have kind of the major, and then it goes to the laggards and all of this. So I think that in general, the people who are early adopters, right? It's always in the beginning. You always have a little bit more risk, maybe, right?
Right.
But also, yeah, you get the more benefits and you get a better narrative, and then the platform becomes again more about believing in people and benefiting from the people you believe in. But then as the time grows, again, it might switch from not necessarily supporting, but then get to that access standpoint, right?
Yeah, and I think you see that in probably any platform. The early days of any platform is usually the fun part, right? Like when it's the enthusiasts and it's people kind of sharing ideas, and as it gets bigger, it becomes a little bit more, like as celebrities sort of enter a platform, it tends to push the sort of like those fun early days out. But obviously that's the natural growth, right? Yeah. And so the attention kind of goes from this like the lower base up sort of to the top where the celebrities are. And I think you can lament that, you can argue against it, but I think that's just the natural progress, and I hope that happens for you guys. Like, because I think that's a successful platform's growth.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what you said, right? That was a little bit of the Snapchat story, right? All those QR codes. That was like, oh my God, this is like a mobile first platform. Here's my QR code. Go on it, right? And then everyone, maybe younger generation than us, were super excited about it. And again, that was a little bit geeky. That was something a little bit new. That was something fun. And there was a little bit of the educational standpoint. And then by the time you have these big names coming in, you're already kind of done with the whole discovery process.
And watching on TikTok, there's a very like anti-celebrity movement within the TikTok community, because it was this place for sort of more peer-to-peer connections, and they see themselves, and as the algorithm kind of like pushes the, you know, the big names up in front of everyone, and people are upset about it. And you know, so there is some like negotiations that have to happen in that way for sure.
But you know, I also think another part of the successful platform is, so to speak, a professionalization of this whole interaction, right? I think that with the YouTube, we started originally with kind of like this kind of thing, right? So just like a couple dudes, a couple gals, or, you know, mixed genders of all denominations sit together and talk, and maybe, you know, record some simple video, and then in 10 years you have like YouTube studio that is shooting like a commercially Hollywood caliber movies and Hollywood style movies, right? So, and clips and all of this. So and that's, I think, again, that's a little bit inevitable in terms that even with the TikTok, as soon as you have this platform, as soon as you have that critical mass, you're going to see people coming in with more money, with more opportunities, let's say, to market themselves, to benefit from that platform. And then again, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, obviously people will always say, oh, again, it's not the same as it used to be before. But then at the same time, as long as it provides the value to everyone on the platform, it will grow, and it will generate this positive product, and it will generate those synergies throughout the platform.
Where do you, as you look at the Human IPO platform kind of moving forward, what are the sort of milestones, kind of like the, you know, next kind of major things that you're looking for, hoping for, or planning?
Yeah, so currently we're in progress with conversations with a few athletic managers. So we plan to move forward with the celebrities from both areas, from technical, from entrepreneur, from the celebrities like athletes, with artists, with musicians. And I want to add that it's super excited to see what community we build in, because of the people we have, and it's such amazing people. It's such a big diversity of these people, and it's 40s and 30s, in Seed alumni, it's artists, it's musicians. We have already musicians as well. We have an opera singer right now, and I'm so happy to see this diversity and this really like great community. I think this is very important.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the risk of something like this is that it might start being like too based on sort of the founder's background. So if you come from, whether it's finance or tech or you know, music in the case of some founders, but yeah, seeing that diversity and reading through the profiles is really fun in that way. So good job on that.
Yeah, but I think there is, from the strategic standpoint, right? You're absolutely right that you start pretty much any platform starts with your closest circle. Right. You know, Facebook started in Harvard. Uber started in San Francisco because dude wanted the black cab on his fingertip, right? So it's definitely that black cab was, you know, the dude that he knew. Right, and it's definitely you start in this inner circle, but then again, as long as you deliver the value through the platform, I think people are willing to go, and that's how you expand, and this is how you introduce that diversity. And the more successful cases you have, the more diversity you will see throughout the platform. But in terms of our kind of strategy, right? So I think what is so important in this day and age in terms of building out startups is the speed of the experimentation. I think our main goal is to create a diverse pipeline that we can see the things that work, and what is most importantly, that things that don't work. And by building that pipeline, our goal is to onboard about 300 people by the end of the year.
Oh, nice.
So and see what traction do we get, how do we work hash out some of the things that we don't even know, right? And that's my favorite term when I'm trying to consult someone, is like, what is your unknowns? What are the things that you don't know that you don't know? And that's kind of our goal right now, to create enough of pipeline, enough of traffic, enough of those network synergies, so we can discover those unknowns, improve our platform, improve the value that we bring to all the participants of the platform, and then take it to the next level. What that next level is, we have some idea right now, but I'm pretty confident that in a year it's going to be completely different.
So I'm your guinea pig.
well, you are a trailblazer. Let's.
Okay, that's a better term. One thing I wanted to do is someone was asking in the KMyGam Slack if you can tell how many of my shareholders have bought hours, and I thought maybe we could do like a quick tour through the app. I can pull it up here, and we can kind of walk through it together. Let me switch over to that. So yeah, so this is the trade page. Right now I'm obviously selected on myself. And it's interesting to see, so one question I have is, do the offers update live, or would I need to refresh to see the most recent updates, just as far as the tech backend?
So currently you need to refresh the page.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, this update is coming in the next release very soon.
Okay, I just refreshed. Nothing changed. It's fine. And so so let's start at the top, and we'll start with my dashboard. There's some email addresses. Pay no attention to that. But so we see my market cap here, almost $5,000, which is great, and total raised almost 700. Now the time on market, what does that number represent?
So this is how much time has been sold by you.
And I noticed that changed a little bit. Like I thought it was like 51.99 for a while. Is there a reason why why shouldn't it just be at 52, or is that?
It depends who owns the time. If you already proceed with the buybacks, if you made some buybacks, it might be a different number. So this is how it is. So it calculated based on the let's say your holders.
Yep. Okay.
I mean, except you.
And obviously my chart is a little boring now because we're still in day one, but we'll watch as that changes over time.
So that's kind of the idea. Time and market is very similar to the shares outstanding, right? So pretty much as you buy back time, as people redeem time for as people redeem their shares for a time,
I see.
That number goes down, and therefore again it kind of this it pushes the price higher because the demand decreases.
Yep.
The supply decreases, and then you can go from there.
Yeah, so it looks like the majority of my shares seem to be held by shareholders. Some of these people I don't know. I'm going to jump off the screen just because there's other people's emails on it. But I feel like this screen will become definitely more interesting as time progresses. Featured today, obviously my pre-bearded face listed there as the most recent. I think I own. Oh, one thing is on this page, are these all people that are currently for sale, or is it just people that are sort of next to them?
It's a featured profile. So some of them already are available for the purchase in their time. Some of them is coming soon, but all these people who presented here will be available for sale.
Okay. Yep. So it's kind of people either current or in the pipeline.
Yeah, we actually have a quite tight pipeline of the campaigns, and everyone is coming and his or her time.
Yep. Awesome. That's great. And then let's go to my profile, which obviously I set up. And for other people, this view dashboard would be the kind of trade button. Is that right? Or is that?
So this is like the button, and depends on which stage you are. So if you did not apply for IPO so far, it will be the button apply for IPO.
Oh, right.
Other people can see here the three buttons, which is buy your time, sell your time, and redeem your time.
Okay.
So for example, if you open the profile of someone to whom you already invested, you can see how your profile looks like for other users on the platform.
Got it. Yep.
So you can see here the three buttons, like three main buttons.
That's great. She has a much longer bio than I have. I should extend that. Nice. Oops, I jumped ahead. I guess that's it for profile though.
Okay.
Any other? I can't think of anything else.
Very another great thing is related profiles, and that's why we ask all our users or our community to put as much as possible information into the profiles, because this section is filling up based on the algorithm, and as much as complete your profile, it will be showed for the related profile. So this thing really works great, and people really connect, and this is amazing.
It's been a really fun thing to sort of surf through these as well. Like having the related profiles there on the side kind of makes it easy to jump through and be like, oh, this person, that person. Brian and I have actually chatted a little bit online before the whole pandemic. We were going to meet up, so I did go through and try to find and follow all the people in LA. I was excited to meet them before. Yeah. Here we go. Here's my portfolio, and I love being able to see the changes in some of these first few people that I've bought into. And I love that. Yeah. So sorry, one thing real quick. I think you told me this in person once. Is do you have to hold a full hour in order to redeem time?
Sorry, say that again.
In order to redeem time, do you have to own a full hour of someone's time, or can I redeem a partial hour or like half hour?
So currently we propose to redeem in a slots, which is a 30-minute slots.
Oh, okay.
But if you want to redeem the bigger amount, of course, you can make it in a few transactions, or you can make a custom order. So the minimal amount of time you can redeem so far is 30 minutes. We believe that this is the most comfortable slot when people can connect and to discuss the future opportunities, and if the interest are if they're both interested to continue the conversation.
There wouldn't be a lot of value probably in some of my smaller investments here, time redemption. So
but like at the same time, by adding them to your portfolio, you might kind of see of what it is, right, and how they grow and what is it, right? So at least you have a little bit of the way in, right? You have just a little bit of the way in, and if you find that, okay, I really need to talk to this person, you can just go and buy additional time on the market and then just combine with yours and redeem it for a certain amount. So that's why we decided not to put a smallest allocation to the particular fund, because again, people might be just looking for the smaller one.
Yeah, I mean, I love that because it allows participation at those lower dollar amounts, and I get to kind of keep tabs on everyone in my portfolio. I know there was the guy on Alex that recently sold a bunch of personal tokens in the crypto space. But I was excited to, like add him to my sort of people portfolio, totally different kind of thing. But the minimum investment was $250, and so I was like, do I want to do it? And as I was thinking about it, he sold out, whatever. But if it had been, $150, $25, it would have been an easy thing to just say like, oh, I want to keep track of this. I want to like, I like that it allows for kind of the dabbling in it. I think that's great.
Yeah. I think it's like it's a general idea, right? Is that on the one side you want to be part of it, you want to be included in the circle and all of this, but then at the same time, if you want to affect pretty much that company, you need to accumulate a certain amount of shares, right? So to be like an active investor. But here it's pretty much the same kind of thing. You can be included in the circle. You can be included. You can keep track. You can see what is happening. You can see the feed. You can see those other things. But then at the time when you actually want to capitalize on that tracking, when you want to capitalize on those people growing and their skills, you can go and just acquire some more time and just redeem it back then.
And let's see. Well, one thing I would love on here, not to throw feature requests at you during the live chat, but I'd love to see the total amount of my kind of the way that you have the change for individuals. I'd love to see that for my entire portfolio. It's just as a fun thing to be like, oh, I've potentially made this much, like if I chose to sell or something.
We do. Yeah, we do have it in the pipeline.
I doubt I'm going to come up with anything right now that you don't already have.
No, there is probably a lot of things that we're still trying to hash out, and some of the things that we're looking at. So We would appreciate the feedback.
So we were just talking about the redemption, and here it is right here. The scheduled 30 minutes. Yep. So obviously, if you own more, you could probably schedule multiple 30 minutes. So that all makes sense. That's great. And do you guide or offer sort of like any advice in once that redemption happens, kind of what happens after that, or do you let kind of the person selling their time kind of figure out how to engage with that time?
So we do have kind of like a rules as every platform. We do have a rules. We handle the communication at this point of time. It's pretty much fairly manual, and we're kind of middlemen as of now, just because we're still trying to figure out what the best way and what the right way of doing that. And then it also allows us an ability to ensure that people follow with their promises, pretty much, right? If you do connect for the 30 minutes, it's not, they're not late, or if they're late, it's not spinning over. So we do have some of the algorithms that we're building right now. We're trying to train and define those rules, but currently we work as a middleman and kind of moderator of this discussion to make sure that both sides see the value and both sides do not abuse any of the opportunities that are out there. So pretty much right now, you just go, you redeem the time, you book the slot, and then as soon as you book the slot, we'll go and handle this interaction between both sides of the party.
It's interesting to create such a kind of this really objective sense of value, like there's like $98 per hour. And then at the same time, you have this sort of subjective idea of what are you getting for that time once you redeem it? And so I do like that there's sort of a little bit of oversight of that, because it obviously seems not that there would necessarily be abuse, unless like a bad actor came in or something, but just the idea of making sure the person gets kind of the value of the full time, regardless of the price.
Yeah. And that's I think the beauty of investing in people, right? Because as we touched earlier, with stocks, right, with shares, unless you Ackman and you acquire billions and billions of dollars and you can affect the company, the only benefit that you get from owning this company is really just financial, right? So there is no different value for the players on the market. It has a hard dollar price or hard euro price on it, and that's the only thing that you can value it. But then as soon as you go into the people, when you go into their time, each person is going to have their own valuation. And again, going back to our earlier, right, each and every one of them will say, okay, is it the undervalued asset and I want to buy it? Is it overvalued asset or I want to sell it? Or is it fairly valued asset I either want to hold or I want to redeem? That's really the idea.
I feel like we probably want to keep it, like within an hour time frame for this chat. I have two questions, and these are the two probably most annoying questions I always get asked. Number one is, what happens if somebody dies?
This is the most popular question.
Yes, same for me as well.
Let's go ahead.
I'll go first. I'll go first and tell you how I answer it for myself. Okay. Which is Aaron, who works on the technical side of my platform, and my youngest brother have basically, like, in the case of my death, the platform freezes, and I have basically my assets get divided up among my shareholders, but only to the point of kind of a redemption. No one can profit from. So if I'm worth millions and somehow and you own a couple shares and you're like, oh, my percentage of his value would be higher if he died. I've made it so there's no incentive to kill me, basically. But there'll be some kind of payout. And it's a little bit weird because I'm sure in the tragedy of my own death, it's the last thing my brother's going to want to do is track down all these people and pay them small amounts. But that's how I've set it up for myself.
So there are a couple things here, right? So I think in your example, the idea is that it's a share, right? So it's kind of like it's an equal part that is more or less a indefinite in time. In our case, those are the times that do have a redemption, right? So it's pretty much as you get older, probably your time will worth more, and then people will start redeeming, right? On the other side, and obviously no sudden things happen, and we do have a backup fund on which of the commission that we collect throughout the process, we do have the fund that in case of the force majeure,
Okay.
That we do actually provide a kind of collective safe net. But then on the third side is that, again, there are some risks, right? And if you look at the companies, the average tenure of the S&P 500 company right now is like 22 years, right?
I read that recently. Yeah, I was surprised.
Yeah, so I mean, if you think about it, right? I mean, there are definitely risks and there are definitely uncertainties, right? So there is not really a way that you can completely take a risk pretty much from everything that you do in our life. But then again, I think with this idea that this time is being redeemed, right? So that amount on the market, that amount of people that we're talking is actually decreasing, and then as it is decreasing, the risk is decreasing as well. Plus, we do have a backup fund that we will allocate to compensating for those current holders on the fair basis.
I was thinking because it's time, maybe I could just invite everyone to my funeral who has time, and then that is their mandated redemption of those hours.
they'll have to say a 30-minute speech.
Yeah, exactly. There's an obligation attached. And then the other question is, have you thought about letting people short any of to short time basically of any of the users? Is that in the pipeline?
Well, if you think about it, right, shorting is not actually a feature of the exchange. Shorting is a feature of the broker.
Behavior.
Yeah, and it's a feature of the broker, right? If you connect direct to the NYSE, you cannot actually short particularly, right? What you can do is that you can borrow with your broker, right? So as of now, our platform does not allow that. So it's currently just working on the buy and sell, and obviously, we don't have options, we don't have futures, and all of this. But then at the same time, as we see it growing and we see a lot of demand, maybe there's going to be a short sale, right? Maybe one person will allow you to borrow this time, and then we pay it back and stuff like that. But
and that contract for the borrowing is off market, but all you would have to do is allow sort of the ability to say, hey, here's a loan of shares, basically, or hours.
Exactly. Yeah, it's exactly right. So on the traditional exchanges, you have a trading side, right, where you can just buy and sell. That's it. Like, you cannot do anything else on the New York Stock Exchange or Nasdaq. But then you have also the custodian part, where all those relationships kind of enforced, and you have this escrow that is being enforced as well. Yeah, so that's definitely, we are not trying to replicate both the broker dealer and everything else. We're trying to build a community based along the ability to invest and ability to invest to redeem and sell. Right. And then everything else, as we see more demand, we can definitely build out this custodian program and custodian relationship. But it's not going to be between us and participants. It's going to be between participants, as it is in real life.
I look forward to becoming a time broker using your platform. One of my very first sort of like virtual currency experiments was, this is a long time ago. There was a company that started the virtual currency exchange, and they basically made a marketplace for all the games that you could play and all the virtual currencies of the different games. And they had like Second Life and World of Warcraft and a bunch of others. And so not playing any of those games, I just used their marketplace to kind of corner the market on one and make some money and then flip it. And it wasn't very much. I think I made like $100 or something. It was just like a kind of proof of concept. I was like, how would this work? And then they got shut down because all the games don't let you actually trade their currency. But it was a really fun kind of way to play a real life version of these virtual communities. And it's funny now, like, I mean, that was before I was publicly traded, so that was probably like 15 years ago. And now we're in the place where we've sort of, like, I was doing kind of real world interactions on these virtual things. And now, like just thinking about where we've come, like, I'm selling shares of myself now. I'm selling hours. People can trade those. It's interesting to see. I want to see how other people sort of manipulate or play in this marketplace in a way that like are able to take advantage of it. because I don't think that hurts the market, you know.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, at the end of the day, there's obviously have to be some kind of like stop switches, right? That again, unexpected things do happen, but I think in general, as long as it follows the general guidelines and people do not abuse that access and time idea in terms of trading and what they can do and how they can interact with each other, whether they can loan, they can have like, I don't know, a fixed income on somebody's time, right? If they want to build the derivative products or derivative strategies, we're all for it, and we're really looking forward to building this ecosystem. As soon as there is a demand, as soon as there is a need from our users to actually do this, we will be more than happy to add those additional facilities to facilitate those particular needs and those particular products, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Man, thanks so much, you guys. It's been a super exciting morning watching my our price launch up. I now know what I'm worth. I never knew before, so that's fun.
That was really crazy, because when I wake up, I just figured out that I almost have no time, like for me, just to cash in in your time, because this morning, I mean, morning in your city, it was already almost sold out. It was so fast, it was really crazy. So excited to see that.
Yeah, what a great pop. It's exactly what I wanted, so that it's fantastic. I'm looking forward to the redemptions and seeing how that goes, and I'm sure we'll be in touch over time.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you so much.
Really great talking to you.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. Thanks a lot. All right. Thanks. Bye.